Guys, super excited to have you guys here. We'll start formally this meeting. So before I go into this meeting, I want to talk a few things. How this meeting will be set up, what is the agenda, right? So I'm Arvind Rapaka, and I'm the CEO and CTO of Carta, and we have Manoj Chinnakotla. He's applied scientist and AI at Microsoft. He's been working on the web query formulation, search relevance, ranking applying, deep learning, ML, NLP at Microsoft for the last 12 years, right? So the way I want to set up this meeting is two-pronged, right? Initially, I will focus on the what exactly is the new e-commerce, right? What are the top trends that are evolving across the e-commerce for the last year or so, and how it will evolve in the next 5 years. That's the key focus. And then I'll also touch upon most of the business use cases that will evolve around the conversational commerce and the natural language commerce, right? The second part that I will switch on to is mostly having to talk about the technology part of it, right? So people who wants to build the co-pilots, especially for the e-commerce, that would be very exciting part to learn. And also ask some questions around that if you guys have any. And then we'll also talk about how to scale the LLMs, especially in the production environment. So Microsoft, which I think Manoj is representing, at a personal level again, and we'll talk about how to scale up to millions of shopping queries, right? And the last part I would leave to Q&A, right? So please feel free to ask any questions, any technical, any business use cases, or anything that you feel is relevant and you want to know more about that, right? So before I go ahead, Manoj, can you please quickly introduce yourself?
Okay, hello everyone. So this is Manoj. I am a principal vice scientist at Microsoft. I work for the Microsoft shopping team. It's a pleasure to be here. I mainly work on how can I, for example, apply this, cutting-edge technologies like LLMs, deep learning, machine learning, to solve some problems in the shopping space. It's been a very exciting journey, especially in help the users in quickly doing their product research, to, for example, identifying the right products, to, for example, learning about their preferences. So I kind of, and also personalizing experiences to tailor to their particular interests and tastes. I've been tackling this kind of problem. And for the past 2 years, it's been the huge LLM wave. So I've been applying those tech as well. So yeah, so it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Arvind, for inviting me. Looking forward to the conference.
Wait, awesome. Thank you, Manoj, for joining us. So I introduced myself, right? I'm the CEO of Cartup, but I want to introduce Cartup as well. So what is Cartup? Cartup is a shopping co-pilot. The mission of the co-pilot, Cartup, is basically bringing an in-person shopping experience to online, right? So what that means, we'll get more clarity in next slides, but the key thing is bringing the technology, the LLM technology, to the e-commerce is the key for the evolution of how e-commerce will go from now to next 5 years, right? So before I go into deep, right, let me give you a little bit of introduction around how e-commerce has been evolving, right? So we all know that e-commerce started probably in 1999, late 90s. But the key thing was took off in 2000s, right? And basically the key was now optimizing the search functions, right? Around 2000 to 2005, people were focusing on that. And from 2005 to 2010, people were really focusing on conversations conversion strategies, right? How to buy and improve, and then encourage the customers to convert more effectively. That's where a lot of companies evolve, like Greenridge, Dynamic Steel, Fortier, right? These are the companies that evolve with been doing a lot of that stuff. And around 2010 to 2015, mostly, things have moved towards how do we improve the efficiency around the average order value, improving the bottom line, more profit kind of things, right? That's when a lot of other companies evolve, mostly, optimizing the shopping experience or improving the revenues and then profits. And then 2015 to 2020, right, majority of the merchants were focusing on how to retain and increase the brand loyalty, right? That is where the D2C, direct to consumer businesses evolved a lot. And that was forcing a lot of companies to, adopt how do we retain, how do we build a social fabric around various strategies to bring the loyalty so that there's a less churning on the customer. But beyond, 2023 and beyond, there's a new commerce experience is going to evolve, and which I'm going to talk about in detail. But this is the most tectonic shift in the last 20 years. How the e-commerce will evolve from now to the next decade is fascinating. And what we betting as a startup is that we won't see the same commerce experience that we are right now. So it's going to be more conversational, more towards speech, more towards visualization. The aspects of AR, VR will be more as the trends of the AI is evolving. But in this process, we all know that there was one company that was started selling books, right, has captured this market slowly. The reason they were able to capture is they were at least 3 steps ahead of everybody who was doing the e-commerce business, right? They literally destroyed a lot of businesses that we know, like Circuit City, right? Nobody might have heard about that if you're born after 2000s, right? So there are a lot of companies that are destroyed, but slowly they evolve into a giant dark matter of the e-commerce, right? They were gobbling all the e-commerce businesses that they can see, and eventually right now is 513 billion in sales, right? So, but this is a unique opportunity for the rest of the e-commerce businesses at this point in time to catch up with this new technology that really puts, I believe, right, and sincerely believe, and we at Startup are on the mission to bring that equalizing factor, right? You think about Amazon and putting every other companies to compete with Amazon itself. And in the process, what we realized is we've been talking with hundreds of CEOs of e-commerce companies and the pundits in e-commerce businesses, gurus. And what we realized is we can all put all the key KPI metrics that every company is struggling in the e-commerce space in one word, right? And that is shoppers are not confident in buying on the most e-commerce sites and end up going to the Amazon, right? And I will give a staggering stat that came out of Gartner recently, right? So last year, around $58 billion was spent on advertising alone, right? To bring customers or shoppers from different portals, search, and then the social networks to their sites, right? The ads, from the ads, right? You know, a lot of ads coming on Instagram to Facebook, and then Google. They're spending $58 billion, right? And interestingly, right, 47%, staggering 47% of the shoppers bounced out within first 10 seconds, and almost 82% bounced out within 30 seconds, right? That means that within first 5 to 10 seconds, the advertising money is lost by 50%. And by the time 30 seconds comes in, almost 82% of the advertising money is gone for nothing. And it leaves a big dent for the merchants because they spend so much of money on the SEM and they didn't end up in any kind of conversations, right? Conversions. And all of this, right, you can tell about the user engagement, digital experience, all of that you can put in one bucket simply. That is called confidence. People are not confident, right? So what do we do, right? What is the next step for us? How do we bring this confidence in the people, right? So we've been talking for the last 2 years, we've been working on this something incredibly, bringing that level of fields with Amazon, bringing the kind of technology that would be accessible to everybody, which we call the new e-commerce experience, right? And one of the key drivers of the new commerce experience is primarily the Gen AI, right? And I will go into details of the Gen AI, but I will go into 5 top trends that we are seeing when we go to the market. The customers are asking, can you do this? Can we do that, right? This is what our customers experience. These are the pain points that our shoppers are experiencing. Every day, these things that we're listening as we talk with the merchants across the world, right? Big and small. We're talking with companies like $300 billion companies to companies on the Shopify, right? And we can all categorize in one thing, right? And that is the new commerce experience, right? What is that? So first, I think it's a very important part is how do we bring the in-person shopping assistance that experience to the online store, right? That is the most important thing. Most of the times we go to our stores, right? In person, we buy from those stores with confidence, right? But that confidence is not the same thing when we go to the online store, right? And the key thing is how do we bring this in shopping experience where people can ask questions about what this product is about and feel that confidence in that, right? And the key factor of driving is bringing that experience, right? A new kind of an experience. The second one is we're doing the AI product guidance. This is one thing that is very, very important that really brings people to buy confidently, not only buy confidently, but also the exchanges, right? The written exchanges will be far less because small companies are destroyed by returns, right? The things that are written because people don't know what they're buying most of the time because the content is not there. So if we can guide every shopper in the journey, for example, this was a very eye-opening for me. I was putting pavers other day, and I went to floor and decor online store. And then I was trying to buy these pavers, and I didn't know if it goes with the sand and or concrete. And my contractor was asking that, and I don't know, right? And fortunately, there was a store close to my home, and I went and asked the family, right? If that is not there, the store is not there, they would have lost around $10,000 worth of concrete, right? So that is the key thing. How do we guide these shoppers to bring that kind of an experience where they can ask questions about the product, anything, right? Not only just inside the store, inside the product description, but from the images, from the reviews, from the external sources like online sources like YouTube to TikTok, whatever those are. This is one thing that is very close to me, and I feel that this trend is going to move big time, is getting tasks done, right? Stopping the endless search. For example, most of the times I do camping, right? And one thing that I do see very often in this journey is I do endless search, right? I have to go with my two kids. What should I take, right? I have to do Google. I have to find that. I have to find here, right? It kind of loops, right? And it can endlessly, it takes almost weeks to get that done. How can we bring that, all of that endless search to telling one task, right? The task is very simple. I want to go to camping with two of my kids. How do I accomplish it, right? The simple way to do it is ask that question, right? And then we bring all of that items that you need to buy for camping in a very personalized and subtle way. Based on your brand preferences, based on your interests, based on your colors, we can bring all of the products. These are the shoes that you need to buy. These are the camping equipment you need to buy. These are the tents that you need to buy. That's a really game changing. They're really a powerful experience that we can bring to the customer. And the next one, this is very much a big problem with all this, customers when we talk, they receive endless queries, right, about their orders, about the written policies and all of that. And they have agents, right, in-person agents answering these questions. And it is a very expensive for small companies to sustain that kind of marketing strategy and compete with Amazon, right? So what if we can understand from the query what exactly needs to be, the query is in a natural way, call the data sources, relevant data sources, in this case, order management, bring all of that and put it in a very natural way and see, like, initiate a dialogue, right? And that's a powerful experience as well. And that also initiates a lot of dialogues and eventually opening a ticket, right? The systems can do that today. The last one, I believe, right, in this talk that I believe that is very important is most of the shopping experience today, not just the customer journey, but beyond the journey, right? How do we give the journey? Because most of the times, this customer journey is not ending with buy, right? The time that you think that I sold something and your job is done, guess what? The item is returning back to you. Now that's a double problem for you, right? So the key thing is how do we do that beyond the customer journey, right? There is a journey that exists beyond, which nobody's tackling, right? And for example, I bought a tent the other day. I don't know how to set it up, right? There was some small problem with the tent. So now with this generative AI, I can ask questions about how do I set this screw up to make sure the tent is stable, right? These are the things that I can ask beyond the selling point, and it's a very, very important experience that I feel that will incredibly change the customer experiences in the next decade, right? And I want to right now ask questions to Manoj, right, in a very similar context. Manoj, how is Bing shopping experience thinking about this Gen AI? What are the business cases that is involving? Can you just explain that to all of us?
Sure, Arvind. So I have tried to sort of jot down the, some of the pillars of the work that we're doing in the space. So essentially, basically, it's about the way I think about shopping. You need to understand the user. By that, I mean understanding the user's preferences, the choice, persona, hobbies, interests, these kinds of things. So, and then based on that, we can sort of tailor the whole experience to that, and then tailor the user needs, and then personalize the offerings to based on this. The other thing is understanding the product. So basically, deeply understand what the product is, what are the attributes, what are the pros and cons, what are the reviews, and things like that. The third thing is understand the context. Basically, the same person, whenever for example, is shopping something during holiday season is different from the same person shopping in a different season. So you have to sort of, based on the context, location, time, day, understand the context whenever you understand, you need to understand the shopping need. And the final thing is the experience. So right now, the experience of going to a search box, keying in some keywords, getting the product you need may not be the same thing, may not be the optimal way of doing it. So that's one more area where LLMs are going to revolutionize the way we see the shopping journey. And one more pillar I would like to add to this is also the stage at which the user is in the shopping journey. So is the user at a research phase? Is the user at a product buying phase? Is it like a post-purchase? So at what stage, because depending on the same, which stage of the journey the user is in, so a lot of things could be tailored accordingly, the experiences. So we're working on all of these pillars. Basically, for example, one of the very cool things about LLMs is we have the ability to reason and then consolidate multiple evidences. I'll give you one instance. For example, we actually kind of logged a lot of user activity, and then based on what kind of queries the user issues, and try to understand more about what the user is, what the user is looking for. So when we were asking the LLM to analyze the user event, it came up with something interesting. There was a case where in one of the user was searching many things about health issues, and then security cameras and things like that. And suddenly the user is also searching for some dolls. The user is also searching for some health conditions which are related to seniors. So the LLM was able to infer that probably this is some senior person who is trying to shop some dolls for their granddaughter or grandchildren. So it's a very cool thing. Essentially, what the LLM is able to do is sort of reconcile these multiple sources of evidences and reason about it, and being able to come up with some idea of the persona of the user, right? So this was earlier not possible. Earlier, you would have, for example, one model for predicting the age, one model for predicting the profession. You need to have these multiple models, and then you probably need to have one more model. So it's a bunch of models. As opposed to that, what the LLM is we are able to do is basically stitch these multiple sources of individual evidences and then reason about all of these evidences like a human would do, and to arrive at some kind of picture. So because of this, it allows you to build very rich user profiles, which was not possible. For example, you can do all these rich profiles. You can even do some, for example, understanding your audience in a much better way. You can say, hey, this is my website. Now tell me the distribution of the age of who are the users who are visiting me. And also, it, for example, allows you to understand the product in a deeper way. For example, let's say I'm going for shopping. I was looking for some gaming monitors. So, for example, I'm a completely newbie to understanding gaming monitors and what are the different pros and cons. So I can say, hey, can you just show me all the gaming monitors at the table, or can you compare the price and, for example, only the refresh frequency, show the different monitors options. And also, I think that you can, for example, format this data in many different ways. You can say, show the refresh frequency against, for example, only 32-inch monitors, right? Or 49-inch monitors. So that's also possible. So it allows you to dynamically, for example, picture or, slice and dice the data. Earlier, it used to be sort of multiple queries you had to do, or you have to pre-curate. It's not required anymore. Similarly, based on the context, for example, for this season, so we are working on some scenarios wherein fashion scenarios, wherein we're saying, okay, in Italy, if it is winter season, can you recommend some products that users would be interested in? And it's coming up pretty cool things. For example, this time of the year, it was coming up with some things like, for example, wine, some winter sweaters and things like that, right? And eventually, Arvind touched upon briefly on this, new kinds of experiences. It's no longer going to be a search box kind of experience. It's more about a conversational style, and hopefully not asking many questions, but understanding and inferring as you go about interacting with it. And kind of I think one of the things that is also happening is we might actually eventually see a concert, shopping concerts with the thing coming up, wherein basically, let's say I just say, hey, Ma, can you order a new pair of shoes? And the concert already knows about your size, what are your brand preferences, where do you typically order it from, and what is your price range, and it automatically goes and orders it. So we're probably going towards those kinds of experiences.
How is it like evolving in the space of like technology stack, right? So as you told, the multimodality that is bringing LLM is very interesting paradigm, which we never had it. As you told, there were like hundreds of models which are inferring age. One is inferring, the demographics. The other one is inferring geographic and whatnot, the behavioral properties. So how is it evolving the technology stack? How do we infer, right? So these happens in the real time, and some of it happens offline, especially the product files. But the real user data that is coming as the user is browsing, these are ingested into the systems, right? The next thing that do happen is the training and inferring, right? And that is a very interesting next step. Like, how do we infer all of this, right? That's where the LLM pictures will come in big way. And I will talk about how to optimize this LLM further for making sure that LLMs are more reliable. The SLA constraints are very big use right now, because anytime you go out of your network or your cloud to a different cloud, you don't have any more control. So how do we bring that control back to you? That is something that we've been working for a long time. I'll talk a little bit about techniques of how to do that. The last part is a very interesting part, which Manoj was alluding to, is how do we understand all of the session context? Like how when somebody is doing it, different kind of searches, different kind of browsing at different points of time. Right? I might be buying today a shirt for my kid and tomorrow for my nephew, right? Different different tastes, different price points, different brands, different preferences, right? So how do I understand all of this very effectively? And the key thing is, again, bringing that all context data, session context data into the LLMs to build this effective ways of understanding the recency to the preferences and understand the intent as well, right? So that's exactly the key things to all. I don't want to go into the details of the stack, but if you guys have any questions around the stack, we'll go at the end, right? But this is where I want to focus a little bit onto the LLMs, right? So everybody has questions these days, like LLMs, if you look into OpenAI, right, it solves the world problem. They're boiling the ocean, right? They give you suggestions about medical things. They will give you suggestions about shopping. They will give you things about science. And if you want to know about black holes, they still will talk about something, right? Are they reliable? To a good extent. They do suffer from world projection, right? Whatever we have built the world around, it consumes into this LLMs and it projects, right? Every time it projects the next one. But it doesn't have the context, right? And we got to build that context. The way that a lot of this days evolve, the term is called retrieval augmentation generation, right? What does that mean? That's a very straightforward concept. So you have some data, right? And that is what you want to build context around. That could be your product data, that could be your session data, that could be your external data, right? Which is associated with your users. And when I say users, it's your shoppers, and associated with your products, right? So it goes into it. Mostly what they do is they chunk it, right? And that goes into the next phase of it, which is called embedding, which is nothing but a fancy term for a vector, right? But which is a neural representation, which has mostly a semantic meaning rather than just a vector, right? And that is exactly, you prepare the data. Next part is the retrieval, right? What happens is that whenever you give a query around your shopping, you go and embed that shopping query, and that will go into the vector database, right? And that results into bringing the relevant documents associated with the query. And when you go build this relevant data around the software query, it goes into the next phase of it, which is nothing but sending it to LLMs, right? It could be your open AI or Cohere or some other like Mistral, whatever it is. So it goes into the out of the network, and that's when it will infer based on the context. Because every time when you're building a copilot, it has to stay in the context. It can't be out of the context, right? And then the response goes in, and that's a key thing, right? Every time you have the knowledge repository, the key thing is answering from the knowledge repository. You're not going to answer from the world projection. You're going to minimize the world projection to your projection, and that's the RAG framework people use it. But there is a problem with this RAG form, right? The execution plan, which is mostly implementation of this agent chains, right? We call chains, and which goes into different paths, right? Which is called action, observation, and thought, and then answer, right? So there is a loop in the thought process. Like initially, when the query comes in, it goes into action, it builds the action inputs, and then it gives into the open AI, and then the observation is built based on the output, and then it thinks about whether this output is good enough, or should I again reinitiate an action, right? That's the process usually people follow in this mechanism, right? And then eventually they land up in that. So for example, I'll give a very simple example. If you have, say that I want to buy 10 pizzas for 5 people coming, right? And my budget is $50, right? And the 3 people are chicken and 4 people, the rest of the people are vegetarian, right? So there is a thought that comes in. Okay, these are the pizzas that are good for vegetarian. These are good for non-vegetarian. But then it has to. There is a kind of a constraint, and the constraint is $50, right? My budget is $50, and then it goes into a next sequence of action, which is calculating, making sure that it finds the items which all put together $50, right? And unfortunately, it can go into infinite loops, and that could result, not infinite loops, but at least loops enough that your customers or your shoppers might be fed up with being so delayed, right? So what we came up with is pretty much a hierarchical approach, right? We initially build a plan, execution plan, that what is the best path we can take it, rather than going into the sequential process of action, observation, thoughts. Can we go parallel, and can we also go into a hierarchical way and find that optimal path to the answer, right? So there might be 2 answers, and we can also go in the parallel paths, right? So that is the beauty about our execution plan, which we saw a lot of our customers struggling when we initially deployed with the delays, right? And we came up with a new approach, which is a hierarchical way of execution plans. And the next thing, the big problem is OpenAI is great? Yes, it is absolutely mind-boggling, and it changed the way we think about the world and how it will evolve. But certainly, it is not solving all the problems today to go into the enterprises. One of the big problems, as I told, is the delay, right? In the SLAs are not dictated, right? Unless until you are a Microsoft who is paid $10 billion to OpenAI. If you're not one of those guys, you're not getting their attention at all, and the SLAs are dictated by them. So what we realized is that the key thing for us to get out of this is ability to build the foundation models or fine-tuning the foundation models, right? So there are a lot of open source foundation models, especially Mistral that came out of French, I think, startup. Recently evaluated at 2 billion, and then there's a Llama model that came out of Facebook. They're very promising, but certainly there are some pitfalls in using that, and I will go after what it is, right? Before I go into how does the fine tuning works, right? The fine tuning usually takes three steps, right? One is you build a word projection, right? You build all these embeddings with a huge model. And then it goes into the fine tuning, which is called supervised fine tuning, right? So you give the prompts, and then the labeler has already done what is the right answer, and then you train from that. The next step that goes into the fine tuning is reward model, building of the reward model, right? So these prompts, multiple models are evaluated, and then this data is used to build a reward model. Once these two steps are done, now you take the fine tuning and apply the reinforcement learning with a human feedback, right? And that's a big part of why OpenAI succeeded so much to keep queries to not go into rogue mode where there is a lot of discrimination, a lot of other things that unwanted, unsavory things that could come out of LLM. That is reinforcement learning with human feedback, where you take the policy optimization by initializing your supervised learning, and then eventually you will reward the models, right? This is where the human come in the loop. So this is the technique that you can take an existing open source and then fine tune it, right? And this gives you excellent results if you're trying to especially solve a small tasks, right? And that is where the federated fine tuning is coming, is that you take small sets of these data sets and then build a small tiny LLMs, right? And each one has a very specific, because the big problem is the Mistral models are very small, like 7 billion parameters compared to trillion, plus in OpenAI GPT 4.5, I think, 4 plus. These are small, so they don't have the complexity in it to multi-model modality, bringing modality, right? So you can fine tune the small Mistral models, right? Which is 7 billion parameters, and then you can build multiple of these, and then take your task to a much effective, and then the speed is really fast. You can get into milliseconds of inference compared to probably a minute or more sometimes with the OpenAI, right? So there's a lot of optimization techniques, right? One of the optimization techniques is to have the active model, reference model, and continuously doing the tail divergence, right? And then doing the TPO to make sure you're fine tuning. But the 7 billion parameters are frozen. You're not, because this is really fast. You can do it probably in a day or two. You can fine tune your models. So you don't want to touch the 7 billion parameters that are frozen, right? They're mostly frozen. And then you put like a trainable weight, and that's the key thing there. As you train those, I think you can effectively train with a very small data set, and you can get incredible performances. We have seen not only at answering those, but also the SLA, which is very important, especially in building conversational knowledge, right? Now, I think I will switch on to Manoj, right? Manoj, can you talk about how these models are scaling up at Microsoft? What are the problems that you're facing? How you're solving these problems?
So I think, like you said, the GPT-4 is not scaling. So it runs into like token issues. So although at the Microsoft level we do have like a partnership with OpenAI, but still, I mean, like there's a certain amount of budget we all have to adhere to, and we are quickly like running into capacity issues. So yeah, one thing we've been doing is like fine tuning. fine-tuning into smaller models. Especially, we have had incredible success with Mistral. Mistral 7 billion. I recently fine-tuned Llama to Mistral. And very impressively, Mistral is like very good. The other thing is when you're actually doing this fine-tuning, one thing is you will need the right set of like techniques to be able to even fine-tune. It requires a lot of resources. And there is a very good bunch of work about parameter efficient fine-tuning, especially on LoRa, QLoRa. I think these are very good techniques. So I'm recently trying to fine-tune on my MacBook Pro, trying to see, apparently you can do it, like, because what happens is you actually can, instead of fine-tuning the entire model, you can actually increase the entire model weight 7 billion. And instead of that, you can actually only train an adapter, which is a smaller bunch of weights, low rank approximation of the actual weights. And it's possible to do it on modest level of thought with it. So this is extremely important because for a scenario, even if we want to fine-tune the smaller model, you would still need the resources to train it. And you have to sort of see how you can minimize the amount of resources required there. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you are actually tuning into a highly specific path, for example, like personalized recommendation or like, highly specific paths, then in that case, these models work incredibly well. You don't have to be like solving for AGI like OpenAI is doing. And in our experience, even smaller compact models, even smaller than Mistral, can actually do pretty well. So that's what we've been seeing, and that's a good learning. That's a good way of scaling.
Yeah, great, awesome. So you raised a very good point, the budget. So it's one thing that I have to heard stories about how people are stacking up the open AI. They're not realizing they put into the open wall, and then people like misusing it, right? And I heard that some companies, raking up hundreds and thousands of dollars, and literally destroying the companies, right? So I think the key thing is the open source is really, really important part in this journey. If you really, one of you guys are building the conversational commerce or whatever it is, right? Whatever purpose, I think you got to be careful. But the good thing is, anytime you want to prototype it, go with OpenAI, right? I highly suggest it. It is the quickest way to implement it. That's the quickest way to building anything, right? Because you don't have to. Once you're ready with that layer, right? Though you don't have a lot of IP on that, but the key thing is then you can take all of the experience and bring that. And also one of the key things is, as you guys are doing, the AI building for themselves, right? It's very important that these things are taken care at every level, right? So I will stop here, guys. I think this is an excellent talk, right? Manoj, thanks a lot. You said a lot of lights to how Microsoft is doing, and especially around business use cases, and also around how to scale up, right? But I will have around 30 minutes for, not 30 minutes, 20 minutes for any kind of questions from anybody, right? So Manoj and I would be very glad to take those questions, guys.
Hi, this is Melissa here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, firstly, Arvind and Manoj, for the insightful conversation. So my name is Melissa Lopez. I'm the Director of Product for GBP Solutions. And we provide e-commerce solutions and technology to clients across Europe and US. I have two questions, which both of you I hope can answer. The first is, what are the biggest risks of not implementing AI into the tech stack to companies that are waiting on the sidelines rather than implementing AI urgently now? My second question is, there are several new startups coming up in the AI space, and however, one of the challenges we face when talking about implementing AI to our clients is managers are not sure how to go about selecting the right solution. So what criteria would you say to help us identify like a good solution from the crowd? Thanks.
That's a really, really great question. So, Manoj, you want to take first, and I will time back.
Oh yeah, sure. So for the first question, so basically, like I said, it has the ability. I mean, this new tech has the ability to totally transform. So I would want to call it as in the transformative bucket, with the potential to like totally life, totally new scenarios which you could not have earlier thought about, especially on the front of user understanding, product understanding, be it in terms of even the interfaces that you can sort of build using this tech. Having said that, one thing is I would also want to underscore that this is an expensive tech. This is kind of like, high risk, high reward, like high cost, high reward tech. So we have to be really mindful about the cost of this tech. And especially, let's say, if an existing tech is already solving your problem, so I think we have to be mindful about reusing it to the extent possible, and then only use this tech for high-value scenarios which are likely to bring like 10x revenue or 10x improvement. Or else we might actually end up like spending a lot of money, but then on something which you could have possibly used an existing model or a bunch of text classifiers could have solved your problem. So in that sense, we have to be really mindful of the cost of this tech. But I would certainly put it in the transformative category. And the second thing is about like what kind of tech stack to build and stuff. I think it's better to sort of consult some experts in this space and consider different choices, not jump on to the most coolest and the latest and the greatest thing, but about, for example, these kind of choices as in, okay, this is the problem. What is the right level of tech, I would want to call it? So to need it to solve this problem effectively, right? Some scenario might be really complex. That might actually be a very good case for doing like a full pure LLM stack. But some cases, for example, we're realizing that we have a production system at Microsoft for recommending products, and that's not based on LLMs. That's kind of based on our embedding tech. And it's kind of doing pretty well. I mean, like because it's mostly, let's say you browse something relevant, it gives you something relevant. And what we're realizing is it may not be a good idea to fully replace it because considering the cost of it, but we would definitely want to use it for some other kind of high value scenarios. Even at Microsoft, we are being mindful about those kinds of choices.
Yeah. I would be a little bit straightforward, and the risks is like kind of a death sentence, right? It's kind of waiting for a death sentence, really. The reason is, right, if you don't do it, somebody will do it, right? Better and efficient and effective, right? That's the problem that most of the companies do have to face, right? This is not a formula that we have seen in the past. This is a real thing, right? And the way the technology is evolving day by day, right? The open source to open AI, these are really incredible power in the hands of everybody, right? And if you do not adapt, right, you will be at the pace of your life, right? The company's life, if you mean. And the reasons are simple, right? I was doing some of the work in this
Generative AI models for user privacy.
A year ago, I always thought that the Google AI is the most powerful thing, right? Built by around 100,000 people. When I see OpenAI, a year from now, what I believe is that a 10 people company can build a better solution. Of course, the marketing side and the other side is very, very different, right? I'm not going to get that, but the technology side, that much of power that I'm bringing in the hands of the people, right? And think about if you're not doing that, somebody will do it. And that would be really kind of an end of the company, right? That's a risk. How about doing implementation, right? So the key thing, Malaysia, is to jot down the pain points. What are your pain points mainly, right? What is that your customers are expecting from you? where they're facing a lot of troubles, right? And that is your the holy grail to go after these companies, right? Anybody, right? Like a startup to anybody, go after those guys and see if they're really solving the pain point, right? And the key thing is the demonstration. The product should be very demonstrable, really powerful enough that it is solving the customer pain points. And then, of course, the price points and all of that will come in play. The key thing is, this is as Manoj was telling, this is very expensive tech. And how do we make sure that the cost is very well negotiated upfront, right? These are some of the contractual negotiations that are key if you like the product and go move forward, right? And there are a lot of hidden fees, especially if people are using OpenAI, they will make sure that you buy the OpenAI key, right, and provide those. In those cases, the price is not very upfront. And you can make up millions of dollars, right? If you have like 1 million customer, easily you can make up like $1 million just on the OpenAI.
Can you please tell me how
These are some of the interesting
AI maintains user privacy while delivering a more personalized?
Very good question. Very good. Go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for sharing this wonderful insights. Looks like you guys are doing a great job here. Quick question, very fundamental. I'm new to AI, but just wanted to ask this. So, is there any reference that you can provide who probably have implemented this like delightful experience? May not be an integration with Kata, but anything that you may reference just to get a feel of how this experience actually feels like. Because like typical Amazon, I mean, we know they do recommendations based on your shopping patterns, things like that. But I don't believe like that's like entirely based on like LLMs. Maybe to some extent, but looks like, I mean, you guys are taking it to the next level. So any reference to some thing out there that I can just kind of feel?
So we have done at Microsoft, we have done a shopping copilot. So some of these scenarios we're looking at is, let's say, for example, you go and say, hey, I want to buy running shoes. Then, for example, Copilot is going to come back and say, hey, like running shoes, is it for like, light jogging, or is it for like sprinting, or is it for like which season, all weather, winter? So it's going to come back with some questions, and then you're going to ask, like, you're going to give some follow-up response. It's going to come up with like follow-up questions, and eventually it's going to show. It's going to keep refining the set of products it's showing you on the left side. And let's say every time you answer it, it's going to sort of remember your choices, and next time be more mindful about the kind of questions it asks you. So that is one scenario which is very powerful, as in it's not going to be like like I said, like going to a search box and then doing a bunch of queries and then coming and selecting. And instead of that, you can even say, okay, fine, I got these choices, but can you show them as a table and then compare their prices and then their longevity, for example, how long they can actually last. Right? So you can ask those kinds of questions and it will immediately show you some such stuff. So this was, I think, recently demoed in one of the events. This is one thing I can think of. And there is one more thing called Shop app. I think this is, again, they have also implemented one version. It's shop.app. So they have integrated LLMs as well. So it's again in a conversational format. So that's also one thing that comes to mind.
So the other part is like, can you describe the experience? Is it purely on the e-commerce side or something else that you're looking at?
Yeah, just from the e-commerce standpoint, like the shopping experience.
Yeah,
because like it seems like the technology that you guys are building is mostly to incorporate into the e-commerce, right?
Yeah.
So just wonder, like, I mean, as a customer or consumer, like, I mean, we spend a lot of time on various, shopping, online shopping, right? So just wondered, like, I mean, how this would feel in reality. Is it so? My question is more around like, yeah, it can get delightful, but how are the early adopters um, exposing this technology? Would it become more like annoyance, or would it become more like a blessing, right? Because like, um, especially in the call center space, the voice technologies were implemented, and we all know that, like, I mean, they got pretty annoying, even though the technology initially was cool. So just wondered, like, I mean, what's reality versus hype?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So again, this is an evolution phase, Vipul, right?
Yep.
It's very promising, very, very promising. It's not like those annoying automated voice calls, but I feel it is much, much better, right? And it is evolving really rapidly, right? I'll reach out to you, right, and send you a couple of examples for you to look into it.
Yep. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
You give it a bunch of products and then ask it to reason. For example, say compare their prices or extract their prices, or say, for example, show me the one which is good for, like, runners, or show me someone which is good for some choice which is good for people who are like overweight. So that is the second part, is the one which is very powerful. So using it as a reasoning engine, which can perform different tasks for you, like be it in the form of extracting some knowledge from existing, data, or be it in the form of reasoning, be it in the form of comparing, summarizing. So this ability is incredibly powerful, and the other thing, it just comes out of the box. Like you just have to write it in plain English and a bunch of tasks, and it will start doing the tasks. So that part of it is like really powerful. And the way I see it is, it can connect, different pieces of information together that reason about it. And then actually you can even teach it how to reason. For example, there's this like chain of thought prompting and stuff like that. You can actually show it how to reason. You can actually show it how to reason for some other specific tasks which it doesn't understand, in the form of fine tuning. So all of that, what essentially is happening is that you have a very powerful reasoning engine at your disposal, and then it is up to you, up to us, to sort of see how we can use it in very different ways. And that's how I see for example, transformation happening. For example, earlier you had to build like so many models to do that reasoning. These were like all disconnected models, small models, one for each task, and then you would still not get a good accuracy on the overall thing. Whereas now you can just throw some information at it, and you can say, hey, like here are some bunch of sites that the user has clicked on. Here are a bunch of queries that the user has done on the search engine. Now, based on all this, tell me what are the next products that the user might be interested in browsing. Just based on this natural language prompt, it can just give you very good outputs based on this. So that is the one that is really exciting. And like Arvind mentioned, it is going to, earlier it, for example, would definitely need a bunch of like highly paid data science team to do this. But now one or two devs who are smart can just do this in plain English and get all the goodness of this. So I personally feel it's in that way very transformative in the sense of the amount of value very few people can generate, and the amount of intelligent experiences we can build, that has come in handy to everyone. So not just like some high skilled data scientists.
Yeah. Certainly, I think I just want to add, it is multi-model, right? But suddenly there is an action, thought, observation that needs to still go on, right? Because when you try to send it to a different modality, you need to still do that manually, right? Some chain has to do that. On a technical term, but
experience.
but the key thing is, as it will evolve, right, it will go into AGI, right? That is where, there will be a lot of debate that will happen. This technology really will take over the humans. But I think the AGI is the holy grail, that we can get to, right? And once that is done, I think the rest is all right. You don't have to even write any line of code, right? And that will be a really powerful experience. But I think that's probably a couple of years away, a year or two, based on how things are going. And also regulations are very, very important of how they will come in play, as these governments are observing various processes around the AI, right? But certainly the AGI is the
Yeah, thank. So an extension of this question is that uh, can we have some instances where, for example, this technology can be used in chatbots or how to analyze customer reviews that is different from the previous tech?
can you repeat the question? I couldn't get it.
So I was saying that can you actually come up with some kind of instances where we use this technology in e-commerce, for example, such as chatbots or shopping assistants or the customer reviews, where this technology can be used to take the whole customer engagement to the next level.
But what is the question? I still couldn't get. Yeah, you can do that, but what is the question?
No, I was asking about some instances. How can this technology be implemented in, for example, Manoj was saying.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you just told, right? That's exactly what the use cases are. Understanding the reviews, understanding the products, understanding the user behavior, and then how do I interpret all of this, right? And give an answer to it. For example, you can read an order management document from the database to LLM and say, write me in simple language, what should I communicate given this order information back to the customer, right? Who is asking about what happened in the order, right? So these are all inferences that you can make very, without any kind of, I would say, like just like prompts are good enough to bring those all out, right? Yeah. Any further question, guys? You can type it if you don't want to talk. Raise your hands if you have any further questions.
Yes, hi Arvind and Manoj. Thanks for this insightful webinar first. My question is on privacy maintenance. How Gen AI is maintaining user privacy while on the other hand delivering a high-level personalized shopping experience to the user?
This is a really good question. So, privacy is a big part of everything that we do, right? That's basically comes with the human nature, and it's very important that the data that we're feeding, especially to LLMs, are protected, right? And unfortunately, there are flip sides, and then there are like good ones. And mostly, if I go on the flip side, right, most of this information is encoded, but certainly can be retrievable from these models. But at the same time, the companies who are using LLMs have to be careful of what they're training, right? Anonymizing the data. All of this are a very important part of this journey, right? Because once I feed the human information, I can query that information through OpenAI, right? So think about Joe Biden, right? I can talk about who is the president, what he done before. All of that information will come out. So I have to be very, very careful of anonymizing all of this data before I can feed into the LLMs, right? So the real way to do is ability to, what is your goal? End goal is to understand the intent of the user, not identifying the user, right? That doesn't give you any. So that is where the focus should be done. Yeah.
So
Any further questions?
No.
Okay, guys, I think this is it. I'm really thankful for this audience who just came in here and listened to us. It was quick. And if you have any questions or any kind of demos and capabilities, I'm available. Right? Please schedule a call or please send an email. It's arvind@cartup.ai. It's pretty straightforward and I should be able to respond to all your queries, right? But once again, thank you very much for attending the call.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye.